One of the things as an entrepreneur that we need to be able to distinguish between is what we call an idea and an opportunity. Now, this might sound like just semantics because they seem pretty similar. And to this point, we've talked a little about ideas and how they are sort of the starting point into this entrepreneurial venture. And we know that they are critically important. But we need to think through the fact that there are distinguishable or noticeable differences between both an idea and an opportunity. And so they don't carry the same weight. So what we're going to talk about in this video is how to distinguish between the two and how to determine really if you have an opportunity that could be worth pursuing. We're going to give you a short, very simple framework to at least kind of have a litmus test as to whether or not your idea might be more of an opportunity. So starting with an idea, we can see on the left-hand side denoted by this light bulb here, is an idea is simply a belief of how something should work. There is no profit generated from this. It is simply in the early stages. We merely have a belief about how something might work and how we might be able to potentially get something into a market. But ideas in themselves are not actually all that valuable. And the reason for that is you can't sell ideas. You can't patent them. They can't be commercialized just yet. But ideas are the pathway to how we get to ultimately the opportunity. So we know that they're important for that reason. But beyond that, they don't have a whole lot of significance here. And so what we want to be able to do is we want to have a very simple way of testing our ideas to seeing if they're actually opportunities. Because in the idea phase, things don't have a great deal of viability. And so the last thing we want to do is to waste a lot of time on ideas. We want to quickly be able to vet them to figure out if they're actually opportunities. So a quick way, if you wanted to determine if something could be more of an opportunity in just a short, simple framework, is you want to ask yourself really three questions, truthfully. You want to know if there is a market for your idea. And by a market, what I mean is there actually people who will pay for your solution? Do people have the problem that you believe that they have? Unless there are people that are out there that are going to be willing to part with their hard-earned money, there is not a market for this particular idea. An opportunity does not exist, right? We need customers to be able to not only validate that there is a problem and our solution is a suitable way to address that problem, but we also need them to be able to earn revenue to make this a viable business. Unless there is a market for our idea, there is no opportunity here, unfortunately. Now, ways to test this, of course, can include trying to sell a particular product, but can also include things like engaging in customer discovery, where we're going out and talking to potential customers, people that we believe have a problem and that our solution might remedy, and interacting with them and kind of gathering information to see if our assumptions are essentially true. Those could be ways to kind of unlock the next step, if you will, and then we can move on to potentially developing minimum viable products and doing a little bit more thorough testing before we're at the point where we're actually operating a business. But a simple question is, are there people out there that would pay for a solution that we have? Now, the next component here, besides a market, is do we have the money? Depending upon the idea that you're pursuing, it might be more capital intensive than others. If it's a service-related idea, there's a possibility you might be able to simply just bootstrap it and utilize your existing resources and maybe some other funds that you have at your disposal. But if you're thinking about developing a manufacturing company, then you're going to need some pretty deep pockets or access to those that have deep pockets to be able to fund not only facility requirements and upgrades and equipment and inventory and all those types of things. So if you potentially have a market for it or believe that you do, the next piece is the money. If you don't think there's going to be a possibility for you to be able to acquire the resources that you need to, at the very least, test your assumptions, it's going to be really hard to justify moving forward with that idea. The last piece is what we call management. And by management, no, I don't mean if you have managerial experience, although that could be helpful if you're building a team. What I do mean is, do you have the skills, the knowledge, the abilities, or maybe even the connections and network that would assist you in being able to kind of build on this opportunity here. So if you're looking at getting involved in the restaurant industry and maybe opening up your own restaurant, do you have restaurant experience? Maybe you worked for a restaurant before. Maybe you were a general manager of a restaurant working underneath someone else and acquiring some additional skills. Those are the types of things that would be helpful, right? If you're developing an application of some kind, it would be helpful to know how to write some type of code. Those are the things that are really important. So what you want to think about in being able to distinguishing, is this really just an idea? And really, we have a lot of ideas, right? Some of them are okay, some of them are bad, and some turn out to be great. But if you want to quickly measure whether or not the idea that you have in your possession is in fact an opportunity, try looking at or asking yourselves these 3 questions. Ask yourself, is there a market for it? Are there people willing to pay? Can I acquire the resources needed to be able to get this thing off the ground? And do I have some of the skills or the connections, the network, to be able to also unlock some doors and to move on and be able to start this business? Obviously, if this management piece, you can always look at possible co-founders and people that have complementary skill sets that you might not have access to. But ultimately, what I want to press upon you is we have many, many ideas about potential problems and products and services and things like that. And what we want to do is have a very simple framework for being able to quickly determine whether or not those ideas have potential value and might be potential opportunity, because it doesn't do us any benefit to spend time on something that is always going to be in the idea phase and doesn't have any long-term implications for our business.